Welcome to Registration, Licensure, and CE Requirements with Estrellita Coronado. Estrellita has been a pharmacy technician for nearly 2 decades. Her expertise is in the inpatient setting, sterile and non-sterile compounding. She transitioned into academia as a pharmacy technician instructor in 2018, and she currently works as the clinical liaison and lead faculty for the pharmacy technician program at San Jacinto College South Campus. Please welcome Estrellita Coronado.
So hi, everyone. Welcome in and thank you for joining me. It's a pleasure to be here as a presenter for your Student Summit in 2026. So let's go ahead and get started with our topic today. So I'll be your speaker for registration, licensure, and continued education requirements as a future pharmacy technician. So let me start off by asking you guys a question. So let's just say, hypothetically speaking, that I've already lined up a job for a pharmacy, right? So I'm working at a hospital that I did my rotation. They really love me and they offered me a job. I test for my national certification and I pass it, right? So the question is, can I legally start working as a pharmacy technician, let's say tomorrow? So again, to recap, I have a job offer that I've accepted. I take in my national certification today and I pass. Can I legally start working as a pharmacy technician tomorrow? What do you guys think? Yes? No? So the answer is no, right? Passing your national certification exam makes you certified, but it does not make you legally authorized to work as a technician in the state of Texas. There is another critical step that many people sometimes overlook, and missing that step can have really serious consequences, not just for you as a technician, but also for the pharmacy that hires you, and definitely for your patients. So today's presentation's goal, we're going to talk about what Texas requires from a pharmacy technician, the difference between certification, registration, and licensure, what you need to do after you pass your national certification exam, and how to stay compliant. So the goal is that after this presentation, hopefully you'll not only understand the different requirements, but also know what steps to take to protect your future career and your patients. So let's go ahead and get started. I always like to start with some terminology just so that we're on the same page and we understand what we're talking about. So we have certification, licensure, and registration. So certification is a credential that's awarded by a national organization. An example would be the Pharmacy Technician Certification Board, or PTCB, or the National Healthcare Association, NHA. This comes after you pass a standardized exam. So the key word here for certification is that this is at a national level. So basically recognized throughout the whole 50 states, the United States, right? Licensure. This is a legal authorization granted by a state board of pharmacy that allows an individual to practice, in this case, as a pharmacy technician within that state. So in other words, if you move to a different state, right, you would need to get a licensure for that state. That does not mean that you would have to sit again or take the national exam again, but you would have to register or get that license within that state. Registration, the process of being listed as an active practitioner in a state registry after meeting certain criteria. This is also in the state level. So you've noticed, even as I'm going through this terminology, that some states, some individuals use licensure and registration interchangeably. Again, the biggest thing is thinking about certification on a national level and licensure and registration at the state level. So an example that I can give you is, think about when you were barely learning how to drive. Before you sit and try to pass your driving test, right, you have to get a learner's permit. So that way the state knows, like, hey, be careful, there's a new student on the loose, right, and they're learning how to drive. So once you pass that driving test, now you're upgraded to having a driver's license, right? But as we know, we have to renew our driver's license every so often, which is basically the same thing when it comes to our pharmacy technician license, which we'll talk about later on in this presentation. Some other terminology to be aware of: trainee license. This is a registration with the State Board of Pharmacy that allows registered individuals to gain hands-on experience in a pharmacy while preparing for a board-approved certification exam. So if you guys are, which I'm assuming you are, right, in a board certified program to get ready to test you for your national certification exam, this allows you to do the clinical component that many programs require. So the trainee license here in Texas allows pharmacy technicians to step foot behind a pharmacy counter and actually do the hands-on experience to be able to learn and prepare to pass their national certification exam. I hope that clarifies a couple of the differences between certification, licensure, and registration. And then the last terminology we have on here is recertification. So after you pass your national exam, just like we talked about with the driver's license analogy, right? You have to complete continuing education credits to maintain your certification in a current and legal status. So let's get into our presentation. So first, let's review some of the steps for future pharmacy technician. So step one, you have to enroll in a board-approved program. Basically, these programs, again, help you prepare, right, to sit for your national exam. So during this time, you study, and your goal is to pass that national certification exam. Once or during the program, right, you register with the state as a trainee, as a pharmacy technician trainee, so you can gain those hands-on experiences while preparing for the national certification. In other words, you're able to go to your clinicals, you're able to practice what you're learning so far within your program. Once you get through the program, now it's time to sit down and pass the national certification, because at the end of the day, that is the end goal, right? For all of us, is to sit and pass that national certification. Once we pass that, we now have to upgrade or change the status from trainee to a certified pharmacy technician. And the cool thing is you actually get to have like a title that you can add into your signature, right? So like when you send an email, you get to use that title, which I'll share with you guys a little bit further in the presentation. And then after that is easy peasy. You just have to keep up with the certification by obtaining the required CEs or continued education every 2 years. That is a very important step, because if you let that certification lapse, you can face fines, you can face being not allowed to work until you get your certification. And if you let it lapse or expire for a long period of time, they basically void your certification, and you have to kind of retest again if allowed to be able to be reinstated. So moral of the story is to never ever let that date lapse or your certification lapse. So let's talk about the initial registration. So this is of course referring to the trainee license. As we mentioned before, the trainee license is allowing you to get that hands-on experience or practice while you're doing your clinicals and while you're preparing to sit for your national exam. So to understand a little bit, we do need to know who regulates this, right? Who gives you these licenses? So all pharmacy technician regulation in Texas is overseen by the Texas State Board of Pharmacy, or otherwise known as TSBP, like tablespoon, right? TSBP. They are responsible for issuing registrations, enforcing laws and rules, conducting audits, and issuing any disciplinary actions. So again, you've noticed that it has the word or the name Texas in it, right? And this is because every state in the United States has their own state board of pharmacy. So there's one for Ohio, one for Washington, etc., right? So every state will have their own state board of pharmacy. Now, the board or the State Board of Pharmacy issues two types of pharmacy technician registration: the trainee and the certified pharmacy technician. So again, to review, the trainee license allows you to get those hands-on training, working towards your certification, right, the permanent one. However, it's very important to note that the trainee license is only valid for 2 years and is not renewable or extended for any reason. So it's very important that you keep up with deadlines as they are provided to you by your program, right? So that you meet those qualifications and you're able to use that trainee license within those given time constraints at your institution when you're doing your clinicals. The second type of license or registration or certification, sorry, that the State Board of Pharmacy provides is the Certified Pharmacy Technician. This is when you're a fully registered and certified tech that can perform all of the technician duties as given by our scope of practice. Again, this has to be renewed every 2 years, and every 2 years there is a cost associated to that, which we'll discuss. But to get either the trainee license or the certified pharmacy technician license, there is also a cost of the application, and of course the cost of the certification exam if you are testing for the first time to get your certification. So the initial registration. So again, some of the requirements that you have to have. Applicants must have a high school diploma or equivalent and complete an approved board certified program. You then will go through the Texas State Board of Pharmacy website and provide personal identifying information such as your social, your date of birth, your mailing address, etc. There is a fee, again, associated with this of $84 and an additional fee of about $50, which is including doing your fingerprint so that the State Board of Pharmacy can run a background check in your information. You should allow at least 6 weeks for this application to be processed and approved. So again, that's why it's super important that you keep up with the deadlines as provided by your program or your organization so that you're not late in meeting those deadlines, as this process can be lengthy. So now that we've already done the training license, we've gone to our clinicals, we've sat for our national exam, what's next, right? So licensure requirements, upgrading that registration. So congratulations, you passed your national exam, right? You'll hear that very soon. But now what? What do you do? So again, once you pass that national certification exam, whether you choose to take the PTCB or NHA, right, you are not automatically allowed to work as a registered technician in Texas. This goes back to the beginning question that I asked you at the beginning of our presentation, right? Again, there's other steps that you have to do. So you must first upgrade your license through the Texas State Board of Pharmacy, submit an application plus another fee, right, to upgrade that registration or licensure, because remember, registration and licensure can be used interchangeably. And then follow the following steps to upgrade that registration. So I do want to make a point again that it is not unlikely that you may be offered employment, right, during your clinicals, or that someone would want to hire you right away as soon as you pass your national exam. Just make sure you communicate with that future employer and let them know, right, and what step of the process you're in. So I've passed, I've now updated my license, and I'm waiting for that registration to go through. So here's the simple steps, again, for you to upgrade that registration. You will log back into your Texas State Board of Pharmacy account. You're going to select the Upgrade to Technician, click on your registration number, and choose the Upgrade option. They are going to ask you to provide with your certification number from either the PTCB or EXCPT, which is the NHA, and the expiration date for that certification. You're going to, again, verify your personal information just in case there's any like change of address, change of phone number, etc. And you're going to submit your application plus, again, that $84 upgrade fee. Once the application is approved, you can then start using the credential CPhT after your signature. So kind of like doctors use, PhD, or pharmacists use PharmD. You can now sign your name with CPhT because now you're officially a certified pharmacy technician or a licensed pharmacy technician. The typical processing time can take a few weeks. So again, this is where the communication piece is super important with your employer, right? To let them know where are you in this process. And one of the questions that typically gets asked is, why do I have to pay again, right? Like I've already paid as a trainee license. I've already done my background check. Why do I have to pay again? So think of it like you're applying for a new registration. Again, going back to the driver's license situation, right? Once you pass your learner's permit, you are now paying to get that driver's license. So same thing here. So now let's talk about the CE requirements. And CE stands for continuing education. So no, you do not have to go back to your program and take the same classes. You don't even have to go visit your instructors if you don't want to, right? These can be done in many different ways, but they are super required for you to be recertified every 2 years. So again, pharmacy technicians must renew every 2 years through Texas State Board of Pharmacy by completing 20 hours of continued educations or CEs. Within those 20 hours here in Texas, 1 hour of law has to be, so one of those CEs has to be an hour of law and 1 hour of human trafficking. So important things for you to know about this CE compliance is that you cannot work as a technician without it. So again, if you let your registration or your license lapse, right, then your employer is basically going to say, you know what, go home without pay until you get this fixed. Because if there is an auditor, joint commission, or someone from the Texas State Board of Pharmacy happens to visit your pharmacy or place of employment that day, your pharmacy is going to get in trouble and they can face fines. You can also get in trouble and face fines, get license restrictions, and or denial of future registration because, again, it is illegal for us to be working behind a counter in a pharmacy without being compliant with our registration, right, without our licensure. It is also advisable for you to keep CE records for 3 years in case of an audit. I personally, knock on wood, have never been audited, but you never know, right? So it's super important that you keep records of the CEs that you completed. And a good way to do that is using the National Association of Board of Pharmacies or NABP website to track the CEs. You do have to create an account, but it is a free account and it does keep track of your historical data when it comes to these continued educations. So some other information to know about these CEs. You can't just get CEs from anywhere, right? They do have to be from an ACPE accredited providers. This just means that they are official, that they are trusted sources, such as free webinars and CE programs through the Texas State Board of Pharmacy. There are also many online platforms that offer on-demand courses and live webinars. And the cool thing about the online platforms is that you could actually search for a specific topic. So again, if you remember, here in Texas, we are required one CE in law and one CE of human trafficking. So using the online platforms, you can actually filter or search for those specific topics. So some of the popular online CE platforms, which I would advise for you to at least write one of these down for future reference, right, include PowerPack, Free CE, RxCE, Pharmacy Technicians Letters, and ABP. Again, you can go through these online platforms and it's very easy and free to create those accounts to get the CEs. Now, as I mentioned earlier, unfortunately, although there are some free CEs, there's not a lot of them. And so most CEs do have a cost associated with them. They typically cost anywhere from $5 to $15 per course, or most of these online platforms also offer subscription models from $50 to $100 per year for unlimited access to CEs. So referencing back to the CPE monitor, remember the NABP is the website of choice where we create a free account. And then once we create our profile, it links those CE providers. And so it automatically uploads any CEs that I've taken and it keeps them under my profile. So it's easy for me to pull whenever I'm renewing my certification, renewing my licensure, right? And I am showing proof to the Texas State Board of Pharmacy. One of the saddest things that could happen is for you to wait to the last minute when your licensure is due to be renewed and you forget that there's a cost associated. I actually had this happen to a student years ago. She went through the course, passed her national, and then just forgot, right? And then eventually what happened is she ended up getting fired from her job and then she lost her license because she had lapsed for too long. So the moral of the story, my personal and professional advice is to, once you become a pharmacy technician, just start saving a little bit of money and setting yourself reminders in your calendar, in your email, in your phone, right? Because there is going to be a cost associated for that renewal and the CEs so that you don't lose your certification that I know cost you such hard work to get. So the final takeaways from this presentation is to always stay registered and compliant. Make sure that you complete the required CEs as mandated per the state. Again, here in the state of Texas, there's 20 hours of CEs, with one being of law and one being of human trafficking. Avoid common mistakes like letting your registration expire, not completing required CE topics, or waiting too long to upgrade from trainee to a certified pharmacy technician, or not tracking your CE properly. Again, if you're audited, you do have to provide proof that you've taken these CE courses. So the last thing I want to share with you guys is to remember that there's a reason why we do all of this, right? There's a reason why this was included in you guys' student summit. Because being a pharmacy technician is not just a job. It's a commitment to patient safety, accuracy, and lifelong learning. I hope this information was useful in your future career as a pharmacy technician. Thank you for joining me today.